Gainesville State School is a juvenile detention facility. It is fenced in. It is well guarded. Handcuffs are a common sight. The school students, most of them 17 and 18, have been placed there for crimes such as drugs, assault, and robbery. Most of society does not really like that sort of kid, the kid that commits crimes. And those kids, unfortunately, are used to not being liked. Some of their parents have even disowned them. You wouldn't think that such a school would be allowed to do sports, but it does have a basketball team, the Gainesville Tornadoes, which is made up of the best behaved students of the school. A few times a year, the team is escorted from campus to play against mainly private schools in the area. The private schools always have roaring support for their teams, classmates and teachers and parents who want them to do well. But the Gainesville Tornadoes don't ever have more than a couple fans on their side, if they have any at all. Their parents attend infrequently or never. The Tornadoes don't expect anything more. In February, the Gainesville Tornadoes got ready to play against Vanguard College Prep in Waco. It seemed like things were going to be no different than the typical game for Gainesville. However, two students at Vanguard decided that that ought to change. It didn't seem right that a team should have no fans. So these two boys came up with an idea. Half of the Vanguard fans would cheer for Gainesville instead. When the Gainesville team entered the court, they were met with what they least expected: a loud, supportive crowd, their own cheerleaders, and big painted posters that said, "Go Tornadoes." And when the Tornadoes would score, their fans would cheer, and by the end of the game, the entire gym was cheering for Gainesville. It was an amazing night for the Gainesville Tornadoes, one they said they would never forget. For kids who were so used to not being liked, it was astounding to have people who supported them so much. That night went the way it did because of two boys. They didn't have to move mountains to make a difference in the lives of others, yet their actions did move mountains. Two boys who had an idea, a goal, and made it real. As the average onlookers, we tend to separate ourselves from people who succeed in their goals, the people who make a difference. We tend to say, "Oh, that's great. Those boys are awesome. Those boys have made a difference. Maybe I'll do something like that someday." Whatever impact we'd like to make on others' lives or on our own life, whatever goal we have, we decide to save for another day, when the time is right. The reason we do this, making a distinction between ourselves and those who do big things, is because whatever we'd sincerely like to do seems just too big, too out of reach. Therefore, we must be different from those people because their goals were obviously reachable, but ours are not. Yes, I'd love to be an artist, but I don't know, I'm just so busy today, and that's a lot of work, and it takes years of practice. I'll see if I can be an artist tomorrow. And I'd love to be a teacher someday and help students, but I can't really do that right now because, well, I have things to do. What happens is this: we want it to happen right now. We want to achieve things now. And if we can't do it now, it's impossible. If we can't do it now, then it must be a lot of work, and I don't want to do it that bad. Well, that's the thing. We are all ambitious enough that we want to do something people won't forget. But I have news. Huge things don't happen overnight. Perhaps this bold statement of mine has turned your world completely upside down, and now you're holding on to the ground for dear life so you don't go floating off into space. No, it is likely that we can't solve hunger right now or find a home for every child right now. If we could, we'd probably all be home, being problem-free and perfectly happy, and I wouldn't have to tell you these things. You may be wondering, well, okay, this guy is telling me that if I want to do something big for myself or for others, it won't happen this moment. Well, then how and when will I ever learn Bulgarian or save the rainforest or be the next Bill Gates if I can't do it today? Let's clear something up. You may not be able to finish it today, but you can start today. We hesitate to do big things because their size intimidates us. But you can do something quite small today that will bring you one step closer to your goal. Now some of you may be thinking, well, one little thing, it won't make a difference if I do it or not. This logic is true for one instance, but it falls apart if we do lots of little things. That's how we can reach our goals. We need to take our enormous tasks and break them down into smaller tasks. Ones that we are willing to do. A task that you are willing to do may be smaller than a task that you ought to do, and that's all right. The important thing is that you find something that you can and will do today that will bring you just a bit closer to your huge, intimidating goal that you have for yourself. The same idea applies to how society functions. Recycling, for instance. We want to help the environment through recycling, but as individuals, we may feel that how much we recycle will have little effect on the grand scheme of things. This is quite true. However, when we have lots of people all recycling together, then this can have an enormous impact on the world. All these microscopic choices have a macroscopic effect. No doubt, I'm sure you suddenly feel quite powerful knowing that your combined efforts towards a task can lead to any desired outcome. Most importantly, this idea of taking smaller actions to achieve larger ones applies perfectly to our theme of compassion. As Unitarians, we want to be understanding. We want to listen and help and be kind, because we only have one life, and so we should use that life well. We want to be compassionate, and we would like to make the world compassionate. This is rather difficult to do, a rather large task, as it seems that the world is in constant net turmoil, with one issue erupting where another was mended. But as Unitarians, we can do our part to make the world a little more comfortable and happy. I don't mean that you should set a daily quota for how much compassion you will do, or that compassion is a chore like walking the dog or doing homework. Compassion is not something you force and does not have a set schedule. Compassion is generally spontaneous. We cannot predict if we will pass by someone who could use a Kleenex or a smile or just someone to listen to them. And we most likely cannot fix their problem. But we can tell that person, whether we know them or not, that even though they are struggling, I hear you, and I care. You don't need much to care about someone, and that is important to remember. Compassion is not generally one large act, but many little acts. And all these little acts of compassion that we offer every day add up, as all small things do. They add up to form a person, a family, a church. They define who we are. 2 high schoolers saw that it was wrong for a team to have no supporters, so they gave the team some. That was a simple move with enormous effects. But they didn't plan for it. They simply saw a need and sought to help and show the Gainesville Tornadoes that the Gainesville team matters. And it says a lot about those 2 boys. I invite you to leave church today knowing that your small actions really do add up into something quite large and quite significant, even if it doesn't always feel that way. And similarly, when you, the members of the congregation, stay mindful of this year's theme, we, both as a group and as individuals, can make a difference in others' lives and remind them that we care about them. To effect our theme of compassion, we would be wise to focus on not just the grand acts of compassion, but the little actions they consist of. No matter the size of the act, whether it is helping your grandmother walk to the car, listening to your son explain his problems at school, or even providing an entire fan base for a basketball team, your actions matter, and your actions are heard.
Give